The rain came down in sheets that night, cold and merciless, turning the marble steps of the Corleone mansion into a slick cascade of water and broken dreams. Elena Deckard stood at the bottom of those steps, soaked to the bone, her 3 children clinging to her legs like lifelines. Their small voices, Maya's fierce cry, Ethan's gentle whimper, and Lily's quiet trembling, cut through the storm louder than any thunder. This is a story about a woman who lost everything in a single night. A woman whose husband's death became the weapon his family used to destroy her. A woman who was thrown away like garbage, only to rise from the ashes and reclaim an empire that never should have been stolen from her in the first place. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you're here. Whether you're watching from New York, Lagos, London, or anywhere else in this vast world, thank you for spending this time with me. How are you doing today? Really, I want to know. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now because trust me, you don't want to miss stories like this. Stories about resilience, about revenge, about taking back what's rightfully yours. Now, let me take you back to that horrific night when Elena's world shattered. Get out. Victoria Corleone's voice was ice, sharp, cutting, final. She stood in the doorway of the mansion, backlit by the warm glow of chandeliers that Elena had once helped choose. The older woman's face was a mask of contempt, her perfectly manicured hand gripping the doorframe like she owned not just the house, but the very air Elena breathed. Please, Elena whispered, her voice breaking. Please, Victoria. The children. Should have thought about that before you married my son for his money. The words hit like a slap. Behind Victoria, Elena could see David Corleone, her late husband's brother, smirking as he dangled her suitcase over the railing. With deliberate cruelty, he opened it. Her clothes, blouses she'd worn to board meetings, dresses she'd worn to charity galas, tumbled through the air like confetti at a funeral. Mommy. Maya, only 4 years old but already fierce, tugged at Elena's soaked dress. Why is Grandma being mean? Ethan was crying openly now, his small face pressed against Elena's hip. Lily, the quietest of the 3, simply stared up at the mansion with those observant eyes that missed nothing. Victoria descended 1 step, then another. The rain didn't touch her. She stood just under the awning, safe and dry while Elena drowned. You were never one of us, Victoria hissed. She reached down, grabbed Elena's left hand, and with a violent twist, yanked off a wedding ring. The gold band, the symbol of 5 years of love, partnership, and building an empire together, disappeared into Victoria's clenched fist. This belongs to the Corleone family. You're nothing. You came from nothing. And now that my son is dead, you'll return to nothing. Elena's knees buckled. She caught herself on the wet stone, palms scraping against gravel. Security. David called from the doorway. Make sure she doesn't come back. 2 men in black suits appeared. They didn't touch her. They didn't have to. Their presence alone was a threat. Elena gathered her children, all 3 of them, into her arms. Maya's fierce little fists pounded against her chest. Ethan's sobs soaked into her shoulder. Lily's silence was somehow the loudest sound of all. As they walked away from the only home the triplets had ever known, Elena heard Victoria's final words, carried on the wind. Jonathan should have married someone from our world. You destroyed him. The mansion gate slammed shut behind them with a clang that sounded like a coffin closing. The motel room cost $40 a night. Elena had exactly $83 to her name. The room smelled of cigarette smoke and mildew. There was 1 bed with a stained comforter, a bathroom with rust rings in the sink, and a window that looked out onto a parking lot where broken glass glittered like cruel stars. I'm hungry, Maya announced, her small voice cutting through the oppressive silence. Elena opened her purse. Inside, a crumpled $5 bill, some coins, and a photograph of Jonathan. God, Jonathan. Her husband. Her partner. The man who had seen her not as a secretary from the wrong side of town, but as a brilliant mind who could transform his family's struggling textile company into a billion-dollar empire. They'd met 7 years ago. She'd been 25, fresh out of business school with scholarships and student loans. He'd been 28, idealistic, and suffocating under his family's traditional expectations. Together, they'd been magic. She remembered the night he'd proposed. Not in some fancy restaurant, but in his office at 2 a.m., surrounded by the financial projections she'd created. Marry me, he'd said, and let's build something extraordinary. They had. God, they had. Corleone Industries had been hemorrhaging money when she arrived. Within 2 years, she'd restructured their entire supply chain, negotiated contracts with international buyers, and pioneered a sustainable luxury line that put them on the map. The triplets had been born during their 3rd year of marriage, a blessing that made Jonathan weep with joy. Then came the car accident. 6 months ago. A drunk driver on a rainy night, not unlike this one. Jonathan was gone in an instant. And his family, his mother, his brother, his sister, all the relatives who'd smiled to her face while resenting her behind closed doors, they'd been waiting for this moment. Elena bought 3 packets of crackers and a bottle of water from the vending machine outside. She divided the crackers evenly, watching her children eat with a hunger that made her chest ache. "Mommy, when are we going home?" Lily asked quietly. "Soon, baby. Soon." But Elena had no idea if that was true. The next morning, Elena put on her least wrinkled blouse and walked to the bank. "I need to access my accounts," she told the teller. The woman's expression shifted the moment she pulled up Elena's information. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Corleone. These accounts have been frozen." "What? By whom?" "By the primary account holder. According to our records, all joint accounts with your late husband have been transferred to the Corleone Family Trust. You'll need to speak with the estate attorney." Elena's hand shook. "That's impossible. Jonathan made me co-owner of." I can only tell you what's in our system." The attorney's office was worse. Richard Mullins had been Jonathan's college roommate. Elena had trusted him. Hell, she'd invited him to family dinners. "Richard, please, tell me this is a mistake." The man wouldn't meet her eyes. He pushed a document across his mahogany desk. Jonathan's will was very clear. The company goes to his family. You receive a one-time settlement of $50,000. $50,000? Richard, I built that company. Jonathan and I were partners in everything. We had documents. Those documents aren't valid without proper witnesses and notarization. I'm sorry, Elena. The way he said sorry made it clear he wasn't. They got to you, didn't they? Elena's voice was hollow. How much did Victoria pay you? Richard's jaw tightened. I think you should leave. Elena stood, her legs unsteady. Jonathan trusted you. Jonathan's dead. She tried calling old friends. People she'd invited to her home. People she'd helped when they needed it. Her college roommate didn't answer. The woman from her book club said she was too busy to get involved in family drama. A former colleague from Corleone Industries told her point blank, I can't afford to lose my job by being associated with you. One by one, every door closed. Elena returned to the motel to find Maya, Ethan, and Lily huddled together on the bed, watching cartoons on a grainy television. They looked so small, so vulnerable. That night, after the children fell asleep, Elena sat on the bathroom floor and let herself break. Just for a moment. Just long enough to feel the full weight of her rage, her grief, her humiliation. Then she stood up, washed her face, and made a decision. They hadn't just taken her money. They hadn't just taken her home. They'd underestimated her. And that would be their fatal mistake. Elena's breakthrough came from the least expected place. She was sitting in a coffee shop, the kind where a single cup cost $3 she could barely afford, trying to figure out her next move. The Triplets were at a free daycare program at the public library, giving her a few precious hours to think. That's when she saw him. Thomas Reynolds, Jonathan's former business partner. The man who'd helped them secure their first major international contract before retiring 5 years ago to enjoy life. He was older now, silver-haired and distinguished, reading a newspaper at a corner table. Their eyes met. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by something Elena couldn't quite name. Pity? No. Something sharper. Elena Deckard, he said, using her maiden name deliberately. I wondered if I'd see you. Mr. Reynolds. She approached cautiously. I didn't know you were back in the city. Flew in 2 weeks ago. Heard about Jonathan. Terrible business. He folded his newspaper. Heard about what his family did to you too. Even more terrible. Elena's throat tightened. I don't need pity. Good. Because I'm not offering any. Thomas gestured to the empty chair. Sit down. I have something you need to see. He pulled out an iPad and opened a folder marked Corleone Industries, Confidential. I kept copies of everything, Thomas said quietly. Old habit from my years in corporate litigation before I got into manufacturing. Jonathan sent me documents throughout your marriage. Updates. Partnership agreements. Financial projections. He turned the screen toward her. Including this. Elena's breath caught. It was a contract. Dated 3 years ago. Signed by Jonathan and notarized by a legal firm in Manhattan. Partnership agreement. Corleone Industries. This document hereby establishes Elena Marie Deckard Corleone as equal owner and co-director of Corleone Industries, with full rights to all assets, decisions, and profits. He made you a full partner, Thomas said. Not just a spouse with shared assets. An actual partner. This supersedes any family trust or will. I told him to file it with the state, but Jonathan said he wanted to wait until after his mother's birthday. Didn't want to upset her. Elena's hands trembled as she scrolled through the document. Page after page of legal language that essentially said she owned half of everything. They committed fraud, she whispered. Massive fraud. Richard Mullins falsified the will. The bank froze your accounts illegally. And Victoria. Thomas smiled grimly. Victoria has been embezzling from the company for years. Jonathan knew. He was building a case to remove her from the board. These files contain everything: bank statements, falsified invoices, payments to shell companies. Elena looked up, her vision blurring with tears that weren't from sadness. They were from rage.
Pure, cristalline rage.
Why are you helping me? She asked. Thomas's expression softened. Because Jonathan was like a son to me. And because I watched you transform a dying company into an empire. You earned your place, Elena. They stole it through lies. He paused. Also, Victoria once called my late wife new money trash at a charity gala. I've been waiting for an opportunity to destroy her for 20 years. For the first time in 6 months, Elena smiled. What do I need to do? First, we file these documents with the state. Then we contact a litigation firm I know, one that specializes in corporate fraud. And then... Thomas's eyes gleamed. Then we watch the Corleone family burn. That afternoon, Elena walked into the offices of Bradford & Associates, the most aggressive corporate litigation firm in the state. Thomas had called ahead. The senior partner, Catherine Park, was a woman in her 50s with razor-sharp eyes and a reputation for destroying opponents in court. Mrs. Corleone, she said, after reviewing the documents, you have one of the strongest fraud cases I've seen in my career. But I need to be honest with you. The Corleone family has money and connections. This will be a war. I know. It could take months. Maybe years. I have time. Catherine stuttered her. You'll need to be strategic. Smart. We can't just march in with lawsuits. We need to dismantle their credibility piece by piece. She pulled out a legal pad. First, we file a motion to unfreeze your accounts based on these partnership documents. Second, we demand a full audit of Corleone Industries. Third, we build a public case, carefully leaked information, strategic media placement. By the time we take them to court, they'll already be ruined in the court of public opinion. Elena leaned forward. How much will this cost? I'll take it on contingency. When we win, and we will win, I take 30% of the settlement plus legal fees recovered from them. Catherine's smile was predatory. I don't lose, Mrs. Corleone. And I especially don't lose to entitled families who think they're above the law. Elena extended her hand. Let's destroy them. They shook. The war had begun. The first step was getting Elena back on her feet financially. Catherine Park worked fast. Within 72 hours, she'd filed an emergency motion citing the partnership agreement. The judge, faced with clear documentary evidence, ordered a temporary release of funds to Elena pending full litigation. Not everything, but enough. Enough for Elena to move her children out of that motel and into a small but clean apartment. Enough for groceries, clothes, stability. Mommy, is this our new home? Ethan asked, his gentle eyes wide as he explored the 2-bedroom apartment. For now, baby. Maya, ever fierce, announced, I like it. It's cozy. Lily simply squeezed Elena's hand. That night, after putting the triplets to bed, Elena stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She barely recognized herself. Her hair was limp and unkempt. Her skin was sallow. She looked like a woman who'd been defeated. But she wasn't defeated. She was furious. Elena picked up her phone and made an appointment. The transformation was deliberate and symbolic. She started with her hair, cutting off the long, flowing style Victoria had once called appropriately feminine and replacing it with a sharp, angular bob that framed her face like armor. Then clothes. No more soft florals and modest hemlines. Elena invested in a wardrobe of tailored suits, sharp lines, dark colors. Power dressing wasn't about looking pretty. It was about looking untouchable. Catherine had advised her, perception is everything. When you walk back into that company, you need to look like you never left. Better, you need to look like you evolved. But the physical transformation was only the surface. The real work happened late at night, after the triplets were asleep. Elena spread out every document Thomas had given her across her tiny kitchen table. Financial statements, email chains, board meeting minutes. She studied them the way a general studies battlefield maps. Corleone Industries had been her creation as much as Jonathan's. She knew every department, every contract, every weakness. And now, looking at these documents, she could see exactly how the company was failing without her. Thomas Reynolds became her mentor in the art of corporate warfare. They met twice a week at a discreet cafe. He taught her things Jonathan had never had time to show her. The political side of business, the psychological warfare, the pressure points of powerful families. Victoria's weakness is her pride, Thomas explained. She built her entire identity on being a Corleone matriarch. Any threat to her status will make her irrational. And David? Greedy and incompetent. He wants power but doesn't know how to wield it. He'll make mistakes. Let him. What about Sarah? Elena asked, referring to Jonathan's younger sister. Follower. Weak-willed. She'll turn on Victoria the moment she senses weakness. Elena absorbed everything. She also started exercising. Not for vanity, but for strength. Every morning at 5 a.m., she ran. 5 miles. Then weights. Then meditation. Her body became a weapon she was sharpening. Catherine's strategy was surgical. We are not going to sue them immediately, she explained during one of their strategy sessions. We are going to make them panic first. Step 1. Catherine filed a formal complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission, alleging financial irregularities at Corleone Industries. The filing was public record. Within days, financial journalists picked up the story. Questions surround Corleone Industries following founder's death. Family dispute hints at possible fraud at textile giant. Elena watched the news coverage from her apartment, a cold satisfaction settling in her chest. Step 2. Catherine's firm hired a forensic accountant to analyze Corleone Industries books. What they found was damning. Victoria had been siphoning money through a network of fake consulting companies for years. Over $5 million, hidden in plain sight because no one had questioned the matriarch's expenses. David had approved contracts with suppliers owned by his friends, contracts that paid triple the market rate. The company was bleeding money. And without Elena there to stop it, the hemorrhaging was accelerating. Mommy, why do you study so much? Maya asked one night, climbing into Elena's lap while she reviewed documents. Elena closed the folder and pulled her daughter close. All 3 children had gathered around her, Maya bold and curious, Ethan seeking comfort, Lily observing with those knowing eyes. Because I'm fighting for us, Elena said simply. For our home. For our future. Are we going to win? Ethan whispered. Elena looked at each of her children. These 3 small people were her reason for everything. Not revenge. Not money. Them. Yes, she said firmly. We are going to win. Maya grinned. Good. I miss my room. Lily touched Elena's cheek. You look different, Mommy. Stronger. Out of the mouths of babes. Elena was stronger. Every day, she was becoming more of the woman she'd always been meant to be. Not the wife of Jonathan Corleone, not the daughter-in-law tolerated by Victoria, but Elena Deckard. The woman who'd built an empire once and would do it again. 3 months after that brutal night in the rain, Thomas called with news. The board is getting nervous, he said. Stock prices are dropping. 3 major clients have pulled their contracts. The audit is revealing problems they can't hide. Good. There's more. I have a friend on the board, Michael Chen. He was always loyal to Jonathan, not the family. He says Victoria and David are at each other's throats. She blames him for the bad contracts. He blames her for the SEC investigation. Elena's smile was sharp. They're turning on each other. Like rats on a sinking ship. Michael says the board is considering calling an emergency meeting. They want answers. When? 2 weeks. Elena's heart began to race. Can we move up our timeline? Catherine thinks so. She's almost ready to file the full lawsuit. Once that happens, everything explodes. Do it. Thomas paused. Elena, are you sure you're ready for what comes next? When you step back into that world, there's no retreat. It's going to be brutal. Elena thought about that night in the rain. About her children's tears. About Victoria's cold eyes and David's smirk. I've been ready, she said, since the moment they threw me out. The lawsuit hit like a bomb. Catherine Park filed it on a Monday morning, and by noon, it was on every business news channel in the country. Widow of Corleone Industries founder sues family for fraud. Elena Deckard Corleone claims rightful ownership of billion-dollar empire. Partnership documents challenge family's control of textile giant. The filing was 147 pages of meticulously documented fraud, embezzlement, and corporate malfeasance. Catherine had included everything: the forged will, the falsified bank records, Victoria's shell companies, David's corrupt contracts. It was devastating. Within hours, Corleone Industries' stock price dropped 22%. Inside the Corleone mansion, Victoria Corleone was having a breakdown. How? She shrieked at Richard Mullins, who stood in her study looking like he wanted to disappear. You said there were no other documents. I didn't know about the partnership agreement, Richard stammered. Jonathan never mentioned. You're his attorney. You're supposed to know everything. David paced behind his mother, his face red with fury. That bitch. That ungrateful, conniving bitch. After everything we gave her. We gave her nothing, Victoria snapped. She was a secretary who seduced my son. She's going to destroy us, Sarah, the youngest sibling, whispered from the corner. For once, her voice carried genuine fear. Mother, if even half of what's in that lawsuit is true. It's lies. The documents aren't lies, Sarah said, her voice stronger. I've seen the books. You have been taking money. To maintain our lifestyle. To preserve this family's dignity. Victoria whirled on her daughter. How dare you question me? But Sarah, for perhaps the first time in her life, didn't back down.
Jonathan trusted Elena.
He loved her. And we threw her out like garbage. The silence that followed was poisonous. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. Victoria and David arrived expecting to maintain control. Instead, they walked into an ambush. Michael Chen, the board member loyal to Jonathan, stood at the head of the table with a grim expression.
Victoria, David.
Thank you for coming. We have serious matters to discuss. This lawsuit is frivolous, Victoria announced, taking her usual seat at the head of the table. My lawyers assure me. Your lawyers are wrong. Michael slid a folder across the table. We've completed a preliminary internal audit. What we found is troubling. David's face went pale. What are you talking about? $5.3 million in unauthorized expenses. Contracts approved without proper competitive bidding. Financial irregularities that, frankly, border on criminal. That's absurd. We also received a subpoena from ISEC this morning. Another board member interrupted. They're investigating the company for fraud. Your fraud, specifically. Victoria's perfectly composed mask cracked. You can't possibly believe. The evidence is clear, Victoria. Michael's voice was cold. You've been stealing from this company for years. And David, your incompetence has cost us millions. Jonathan left the company to his family. David shouted. No, Michael said quietly. He didn't. He left it to his partner, Elena Descartes-Corlon, the woman who actually built this empire while you all reaped the benefits. Victoria stood, shaking with rage. I am the matriarch of this family. I have dedicated my life. You've dedicated your life to spending money you didn't earn, Michael said bluntly. The board is voting to suspend you both from all company operations pending the outcome of the lawsuit and criminal investigation. You can't do this. We just did. The news coverage was merciless. Corleone family suspended from own company amid fraud allegations.
Source: Victoria Corleone embezzled millions.
Employees say company falling apart without founder's widow. The court of public opinion turned swiftly. Social media exploded with support for Elena. Hashtag Justice for Elena trended for 3 days. Articles appeared detailing how she transformed Corleone Industries from a struggling family business into a billion-dollar empire. Employees came forward with stories of her brilliance, her kindness, how she'd remembered everyone's names and had revolutionized their working conditions. The narrative shifted from gold-digging widow to wronged businesswoman. And Victoria Corleone, once the queen of high society, found herself persona non grata overnight. Inside Corleone Industries, chaos reigned. Without Elena's strategic vision and without competent leadership, the company was collapsing. A major contract with a European retailer fell through when they couldn't meet production deadlines. The sustainable luxury line Elena had pioneered, the company's most profitable division, was stagnating because no one understood her supply chain innovations. Workers began quitting. I stayed because of Mrs. Corleone, one senior manager told reporters. She made this company great. Without her, there's no vision, no leadership, just a family squabbling over scraps. The stock price continued to plummet. Investors demanded answers. Creditors started circling. Thomas Reynolds called Elena with updates that grew more satisfying by the day. They're panicking, he reported. Michael says Victoria hasn't left the mansion in a week. David's trying to court investors, but no one will meet with him. The company is hemorrhaging money. How long until they collapse completely? Elena asked. Without intervention? 6 months. Maybe less. Elena felt no pity. Only cold satisfaction. They had thrown her away. Now they were discovering exactly how much they'd needed her. The breaking point came at a shareholder meeting 3 months into the lawsuit. Victoria, against her lawyer's advice, insisted on attending. She still believed she could control the narrative, could salvage her reputation through sheer force of will. She was wrong. The shareholders, many of whom had invested specifically because of Elena's track record, were furious. Where is Mrs. Corleone? One demanded. The real Mrs. Corleone, not this, He gestured dismissively at Victoria, this placeholder. My daughter-in-law is not. Your daughter-in-law built this company, another shareholder shouted. We invested in her vision. And you threw her out. The meeting devolved into chaos. Shareholders called for Victoria's immediate resignation. Some threatened to sue the family personally for mismanagement. Victoria fled the meeting in tears. David tried to maintain control but was shouted down. You approved contracts with your college buddies that cost us millions. You're as incompetent as your mother. For the Corleone family, it was a public execution. Sarah Corleone, watching her family's empire crumble, finally made a choice. She called Elena. The phone rang twice before Elena answered, her voice cautious. Sarah. Elena. I need to talk to you. Why would I want to talk to you? Because I'm done. Sarah's voice cracked. I'm done with my mother. Done with David. Done with this whole nightmare. And I think you deserve to know the truth about something. Elena's heart rate quickened. What truth? The night Jonathan died. It wasn't just an accident. The world seemed to stop. What are you saying? I'm saying my mother knew that the brakes on Jonathan's car were faulty. The mechanic had told her 3 days before. She didn't tell Jonathan because they'd had a fight about you. About him making you a partner. She was so angry that Sarah's voice broke into sobs. She let him drive that car knowing it wasn't safe. It's not murder, but it's... God, Elena, I can't live with this anymore. Elena sat down, her legs suddenly weak. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. And because I want out. I'll testify. About everything. The fraud, the embezzlement, all of it. I just want this to end. Elena closed her eyes. For 6 months, she'd believed Jonathan's death was a random tragedy. Now, I'll have Catherine contact you, she said, her voice hollow. We'll need a formal statement. Okay. Sarah paused. Elena, I'm sorry. For all of it. You didn't deserve what we did to you. No, Elena said quietly. I didn't. She hung up. And for the first time since that night in the rain, Elena allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness. From rage. From grief. From the overwhelming weight of realizing that Jonathan's death could have been prevented. The Corleones hadn't just stolen her company. They'd stolen her husband. The day of Elena's return was planned with military precision. Catherine Park had advised waiting until the perfect moment, when the company was desperate enough, when the board was ready to beg, when the Corleone family's options had run out. That moment arrived on a cold morning in November, exactly 1 year after Jonathan's death. Corleone Industries was in free fall. The stock price had dropped 68%. Major creditors were threatening foreclosure. The board had issued a statement declaring the company was seeking new leadership direction. It was an open invitation. Elena prepared like a warrior suiting up for battle. She wore a black suit, sharply tailored, perfectly cut, the kind that cost 3 months of rent on her old apartment. Her hair was styled in that sleek bob, every strand in place. Diamond studs in her ears, not ostentatious, but present. A watch that whispered wealth without shouting it. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. This wasn't the Elena who'd been thrown out in the rain. This was someone new. Someone forged in fire. Mommy, you look like a superhero, Maya breathed, watching from the doorway. Elena turned. All 3 of her children stood there, dressed in their own formal clothes. She'd asked them to come with her today. She needed them there. We are going to the company, Elena explained, kneeling down. Mommy's going to take back what's ours. Will Grandma be there? Ethan asked nervously. Yes. Good, Maya said fiercely. She should see us. Lily simply took Elena's hand and squeezed. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Elena arrived at 9:55, flanked by Catherine Park and Thomas Reynolds. Her triplets walked between them, 3 small figures in a phalanx of power. The Corleone Industries building had changed in the year since she'd been barred from entering. It looked diminished somehow, less proud. The lobby, which Elena had redesigned with bright, welcoming spaces, had reverted to a cold, corporate sterility. Mrs. Corleone, the security guard stammered. He was the same one who'd escorted her out a year ago. Now his face was pale. The board is expecting you. I know. They took the private elevator to the top floor. The same elevator Elena had ridden hundreds of times before, usually clutching coffee and design mock-ups, her mind already 3 steps ahead on whatever problem needed solving. The doors opened onto the executive level. And there, standing in the hallway like they'd been waiting, were Victoria and David Corleone. Victoria looked diminished. Her perfect composure was cracked. There were dark circles under her eyes, lines around her mouth that hadn't been there before. Her expensive suit couldn't hide the weight she'd lost from stress. David just looked angry. "You," Victoria hissed. Elena didn't respond. She simply walked forward, her heels clicking on the marble floor, her children behind her, her attorneys flanking her. "You've destroyed us," Victoria continued, her voice rising. "Are you happy? You've destroyed the Corleone family name." "No," Elena said, stopping directly in front of her former mother-in-law. "You destroyed yourselves. I'm just reclaiming what was always mine." "Jonathan would be ashamed of you," Victoria spat. Elena smiled, cold, sharp, final. "Jonathan made me his partner because he trusted me to build something great. You threw me away because you're a greedy, petty woman who couldn't stand that your son loved someone from outside your little world." She leaned in. "He would be ashamed of you." Victoria raised her hand. Whether to slap Elena or grab her, it wasn't clear, but Catherine Park stepped between them. "Touch my client and I'll have you arrested," Catherine said pleasantly. "Now move. We have a meeting." The boardroom was exactly as Elena remembered. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She'd sat in this room dozens of times, presenting strategies, defending decisions, building consensus. Now every seat was filled with board members, investors, and company executives. Michael Chen stood at the head of the table. When Elena entered, he smiled, genuinely, warmly. "Mrs. Corleone, welcome back." The room erupted in applause. It wasn't universal. A few board members loyal to Victoria sat stone-faced. But the majority, the ones who remembered what Elena had accomplished, who'd watched the company crumble without her, stood and clapped. Elena's throat tightened. She nodded acknowledgement, then took a seat. Not at the side where she'd once sat as Jonathan's wife. At the head of the table. Where she belonged. Maya, Ethan, and Lily sat in chairs behind her. 3 small witnesses to history. Victoria and David were forced to sit at the opposite end, surrounded by empty chairs. No one wanted to sit near them. "Let's begin," Michael said. "We are here to discuss the future of Corleone Industries. As you all know, we've been in crisis for the past year. Our stock price has plummeted. We've lost major contracts. Employee morale is at an all-time low. And we are currently facing multiple lawsuits and a SEC investigation." He paused, letting the weight settle. "This company needs leadership. Real leadership. And I think we all know who that leader should be." "Absolutely not," David stood, his face red. "She's trying to steal what belongs to the Corleone family." "Sit down," Michael said coldly. "You're only here as a courtesy because you're a shareholder. You have no leadership role anymore. My mother built this company."
No.
Elena's voice cut through the room like a blade. Every eye turned to her. "Your grandfather built this company. Your mother inherited it. And under her leadership, it was dying. Jonathan and I saved it. We transformed a failing textile manufacturer into a billion-dollar luxury brand. I created the supply chain. I negotiated the international contracts. I designed the sustainable line that became your most profitable product." She stood, and the authority in her posture made her seem 10 feet tall. "You did nothing but cash checks and complain. And the moment Jonathan died, you stole everything I'd built and threw me away like trash. With my 3 children. In the rain." Her voice hardened. "So don't you dare tell me about what belongs to the Corleone family. I am the Corleone family." The room was silent. Then Michael spoke. "The board would like to offer you a position, Elena. CEO and majority stakeholder. We've reviewed the partnership documents. We've seen the evidence of fraud. And frankly, we all know this company doesn't survive without you." "What about them?" Elena gestured to Victoria and David. "Victoria's shares will be seized to pay restitution for her embezzlement. David's will be diluted to irrelevance. They'll remain shareholders in name only. No board seats. No decision-making power. Nothing." Victoria made a sound like a wounded animal. "There's one more thing," Elena said. She nodded to Catherine, who placed a folder on the table. "My sister-in-law Sarah has provided testimony regarding my late husband's death. Testimony that suggests Victoria's negligence directly contributed to the accident that killed him." The room went deadly quiet. "That's a lie."
Victoria Sriekev.
"Sarah is unstable, She's willing to testify under oath," Catherine interrupted. "As am I presenting the documented conversation with the mechanic who warned Mrs. Victoria Corleone about the brake failure 3 days before the accident. The same mechanic you paid to remain quiet." Victoria's face went from red to white in an instant. "While this doesn't constitute murder," Catherine continued, "it does open significant civil liability. Elena could sue for wrongful death. The damages would be substantial." Elena watched her former mother-in-law collapse back into her chair, all the fight draining out of her. I haven't decided yet, Elena said quietly, whether I'll pursue that lawsuit. It won't bring Jonathan back. But I want you to know that I could. I want you to spend every day for the rest of your life knowing that the woman you threw away holds your entire future in her hands. The cruelty of it was beautiful. Victoria began to cry, not elegant tears, but ugly, heaving sobs of someone whose entire world had shattered. David just stared at the table, defeated. Mommy won, Maya whispered to her siblings. Sure, Ethan said, but he was smiling. Lily simply watched, those observant eyes taking in everything. Michael Chen continued. The board's offer stands. Will you accept the position? Elena looked around the room. At the company she'd built. At the people who'd betrayed her. At the future waiting to be reclaimed. She thought about Jonathan. About the dreams they'd shared. About the empire they'd created together. I'll accept, she said, on several conditions. Name them. First, I want complete operational control. No interference from remaining Corleone family members. Done. Second, I want Sarah Corleone offered a position in the company. She showed courage in coming forward. She deserves a chance to prove herself outside her mother's shadow. Michael nodded. Agreed. Third, I want a complete audit of every department. Anyone who participated in the fraud, whether they're family or not, gets fired and prosecuted. Absolutely. And finally, Elena's voice softened. I want to establish a foundation in Jonathan's name. One that provides scholarships for business students from underprivileged backgrounds. People like I used to be. People who deserve opportunities regardless of their last names. The room was silent for a moment. Then Michael smiled. I think Jonathan would have loved that. Then we have a deal. Elena signed the contract right there, her hand steady, her signature firm. When she looked up, she saw Thomas Reynolds watching her with something like pride. She was home. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in humiliation. Victoria Corleone, once the queen of high society, found herself a pariah. The second investigation concluded with criminal charges. She was facing years in prison for embezzlement and fraud. Her lawyers were negotiating a plea deal, but the damage to her reputation was irreversible. The society women who'd once competed for invitations to her galas now whispered behind her back. The charities that had honored her demanded their donations back. Her name, once synonymous with elegance and power, became a punchline. David Corleone fared no better. His corrupt contracts resulted in lawsuits from multiple suppliers. His assets were frozen. The friends who'd benefited from his nepotism abandoned him the moment the money dried up. Sarah, true to her word, testified against her family. In exchange for immunity, she provided evidence that buried Victoria and David completely. Then she quietly took a mid-level position at Corleone Industries, working in the philanthropy department Elena had created. I just want to be useful, Sarah told Elena during their first meeting. To actually earn something for once in my life. Elena had nodded. Then prove it. Sarah was proving it. Slowly, awkwardly, but genuinely. 3 months after Elena's return, Victoria came to see her. Elena was in her new office, Jonathan's old office, which she'd kept largely the same except for a few personal touches. Photos of the triplets. A plant by the window. Jonathan's favorite pen in a holder on the desk. Her assistant buzzed. Mrs. Victoria Corleone is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Elena considered turning her away. It would be easy. Satisfying. But she was curious. Send her in. Victoria Corleone had aged 10 years in 10 months. Her hair, always perfectly coiffed, was streaked with grey and pulled back in a simple bun. She wore an ordinary dress, not designer, just department store. Her hand shook as she entered the office. She looked like what she was, a woman who'd lost everything. Elena, she began, her voice hoarse. Mrs. Corleone. Elena didn't stand. Didn't offer a seat. Just waited. Victoria swallowed hard. I came to beg. I don't recall you being much for begging. Please. Victoria's voice cracked. The prosecutors are pushing for maximum sentencing. 10 years. I'm 63 years old. I won't survive prison. Elena felt nothing.
No pity. No satisfaction.
Just emptiness. And you want me to do what, exactly? Ask them for leniency. Tell them I was grief-stricken after Jonathan's death. Not thinking clearly. Your testimony would carry weight. You could. I could lie to protect the woman who threw me and my children out in the rain. Elena's voice was ice. The woman who stole my inheritance? Who embezzled millions? Who's responsible for my husband's death? Victoria flinched at that last part. I didn't mean for Jonathan to die, she whispered. I was angry. I wanted him to see how ungrateful you were, how you didn't appreciate everything we'd given you. When the mechanic called, I didn't think. You didn't think he'd die. You just wanted to inconvenience him. Maybe make him late for a meeting. Maybe cause a small accident that would make him question things. Make him question me. Victoria didn't deny it. You killed your own son, Elena said quietly. Out of pettiness and jealousy. Because he chose me over you. I know. Victoria's face crumpled. She fell to her knees, actually fell, her expensive coat pooling on the floor. I know what I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, Elena. Please. I'll do anything. Elena looked down at this woman who'd once wielded such power over her, who'd made her feel small and worthless, who'd torn her family apart. And she felt tired. Get up, Elena said. Victoria struggled to her feet, tears streaming down her face. I'm not going to help you, Elena continued. You deserve everything that's coming to you. But I'm not going to actively make it worse, either. I'm done with revenge. It's exhausting and empty, and I have more important things to focus on. Like my children. Like this company. Like building something good. Elena. You can leave now. Victoria stood there for a moment, seeming to shrink even further. Then she turned and walked toward the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back. For what it's worth, she said softly, Jonathan loved you very much. And you were right, he would be ashamed of me. Then she was gone. Elena sat in the silence of her office, feeling the weight of the past year settle and then lift. It was over. Not because Victoria had suffered enough. Not because justice had been perfectly served. But because Elena was done carrying the anger. She had her company back. She had her children. She had her future. That was enough. David came next, a week later. Unlike his mother, he brought no humility. Just desperation. I'll sell you my remaining shares, he said without preamble. 20 cents on the dollar. I need the money for legal fees. Elena looked at him across her desk. No. What? I said no. Your shares are worthless anyway. You've been diluted to less than 1%. You have no voting rights, no board seat, no influence. Those shares are worth exactly nothing. David's face reddened. You bitch. After everything. Everything what, David? Everything you did to try to steal my company? Everything you did to humiliate me? Forgive me if I'm not feeling charitable. He slammed his hands on her desk. I will destroy you. Security was in the room in seconds. Mr. Corleone is leaving, Elena said calmly, and is not to be allowed in this building again without an appointment. As they dragged him out, David screamed threats that echoed down the hallway. Elena didn't even flinch. She'd faced worse. The most surprising visitor was Richard Mullins, the attorney who'd betrayed her, who'd falsified Jonathan's will, who'd helped the Corleone family steal everything. He'd been disbarred after Catherine Park's evidence came to light. He was facing criminal charges of his own. I don't expect forgiveness, he said, standing in her doorway. He looked haggard. Broken. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Jonathan was my friend. And I betrayed him. I betrayed you. I let greed cloud my judgment, and I'll pay for that for the rest of my life. Elena stuttered him. Why did you do it? Victoria offered me $500,000. And I needed the money. My daughter has special needs, and the care is expensive, and I... He shook his head. There's no excuse. I'm just trying to explain. Not justify. Never justify. Your daughter, Elena said slowly. How old is she? 12. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she pressed a button on her phone. Get me Catherine Park. Richard looked confused. When Catherine's voice came through, what can I do for you? Richard Mullins's daughter. I want to set up a trust fund for her care. Full medical expenses, education, everything. But the money goes directly to the care facility and schools. He doesn't touch it. Richard's eyes went wide. Elena, you don't have to. Shut up, Elena said, not unkindly. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because a child shouldn't suffer for her father's sins. But make no mistake, I will never forgive you. And if you ever come near me or my company again, I'll make sure you spend every remaining year of your life in prison. Understood? Richard nodded, tears streaming down his face. Understood. Thank you. God, thank you. Now get out. After he left, Catherine's voice came through the speaker. That was surprisingly merciful of you. I'm a mother, Elena said simply. I know what I'd do for my children. Even terrible people love their kids. You're a better person than most. No, Elena said, looking at the photo of her triplets on her desk. I just remember what it's like to be helpless. I won't be the one who makes a child feel that way. 6 months after reclaiming her empire, Elena stood in the newly renovated Corleone Industries headquarters. She'd changed the name. Subtle, but significant. Corleone Deckard Industries. Her name. Equal to Jonathan's. As it always should have been. The company was thriving again. Stock prices had recovered. New contracts were signed. The sustainable luxury line she'd pioneered was now being studied at business schools as a model of ethical capitalism. Elena had hired back the employees who'd been forced out during Victoria's reign. She'd restructured the entire management system to prevent the kind of nepotism and corruption that had nearly destroyed them. She'd also kept her promise about the foundation. The Jonathan Corleone Memorial Scholarship had already awarded 50 full-ride scholarships to business students from low-income backgrounds. Pay it forward, Elena told the first cohort of recipients. That's all I ask. When you succeed, help someone else climb. The triplets were thriving too. Maya, at 5 years old, was already announcing she wanted to be CEO when she grew up. Just like Mommy, she declared. Ethan had discovered a love of reading and spent hours in the small library Elena had created in their new home. Not a mansion, just a comfortable house where they could be a family. Lily remained the observer, but now she drew pictures. Elaborate sketches of buildings and designs that showed an artistic mind Elena was excited to nurture. They had a good life. Not a perfect life. There was still grief, still moments when the children asked about their father, still nights when Elena lay awake missing Jonathan. But it was theirs. Built on their own terms. One afternoon, as Elena was leaving the office, Michael Chen stopped her. I wanted to thank you, he said. For what? For saving this company. For honoring Jonathan's legacy. For showing us all what real leadership looks like. Elena smiled. I didn't do it alone. No. But you could have burned it all down. After what they did to you, no one would have blamed you. Instead, you built something better. Revenge isn't about destruction, Elena said thoughtfully. Not real revenge. Real revenge is becoming so successful, so powerful, so undeniably brilliant that the people who hurt you have to watch you thrive. That's the best payback. Michael laughed. Jonathan would be proud of you. I hope so. That night, Elena took her children to the cemetery. They visited Jonathan's grave once a month. Brought flowers. Told him about their lives. Daddy, Maya announced. Mommy's the boss now. She's the best boss ever. She works really hard, Ethan added. But she always makes time for us. Lily simply placed her hand on the headstone, her small palm against the cool marble. Elena knelt beside her children. We did it, she whispered to Jonathan's grave. We took back what was ours. And we are going to make you proud. Every single day, we are going to make you proud. A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of autumn leaves. For a moment, Elena could have sworn she felt Jonathan's presence. His approval. His love. Come on, babies, she said, standing and taking their hands. Let's go home. Epilogue. 5 years later, Forbes published a profile titled, Elena Deckard Corleone, the woman who built an empire twice. The article detailed her journey, the betrayal, the fight, the triumph. It celebrated her innovative business practices, her commitment to ethical manufacturing, her scholarship foundation that had now helped over 300 students. But the part Elena loved most was the photo they'd chosen for the cover. Her, standing in her office, flanked by 3 grinning children. Maya, now 10, in a power suit she'd insisted on wearing. Ethan, with a book tucked under his arm. Lily, holding a sketchbook full of designs for a new sustainable fabric line. The caption read, The Real Corleone Empire, a mother's love, a family strength, a legacy reclaimed. Victoria Corleone read that article from her small apartment. The plea deal had kept her out of prison, but she'd lost everything else. She looked at Elena's triumphant smile and felt something she'd never experienced before. Not anger. Not jealousy. Respect. David Corleone never read the article. He was too busy working at a mid-level sales job, having burned every bridge he'd ever built. Sarah Corleone kept a copy on her desk. She'd risen to director of the foundation, finding purpose and pride in work she'd actually earned. She still didn't have a relationship with her mother or brother. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. But she had Elena's tentative respect, and that was enough. Thomas Reynolds read the article with a glass of whiskey raised in tribute. That's my girl, he murmured. Catherine Park read it and immediately called Elena. You know this means they'll be writing business school case studies about you for decades, right? Good, Elena said. Maybe it'll inspire other women to fight back when they're underestimated. On the night of the Forbes cover release, Elena lay in bed in her comfortable, not-too-big house, listening to her children sleep down the hall. Maya was probably dreaming of boardrooms and deals. Ethan was probably dreaming of stories and adventures. Lily was probably dreaming in colors and patterns. And Elena wasn't dreaming of revenge anymore. Wasn't dreaming of what she'd lost. She was dreaming of what came next. Because her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The woman who'd been thrown out in the rain with nothing but her triplets had risen. She'd taken back her empire. And now she was going to change the world. The end. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey with me. Elena's story is one of resilience, strength, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her children. It reminds us that no matter how low we fall, we can always rise again, stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. What did you think of Elena's revenge? Was it satisfying? Do you think she should have been harsher on Victoria and David? Or was mercy the right choice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing your perspectives on these stories. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button right now. We share powerful stories like this every week. Stories about underdogs who fight back, about love that conquers all, about justice finally being served. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Elena's story. Maybe it's someone going through a tough time. Maybe it's someone who feels powerless. Maybe it's someone who just loves a good revenge story. Whatever the reason, this story deserves to be heard. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than you know. You are more powerful than they think. And you are worthy of every good thing life has to offer. See you in the next one.